All right, we are live. Hello, everybody out there. Welcome back to the Erasmus Expeditions. Tonight, we are starting a brand new Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition campaign. This one is set in the world of Rosbine, a homebrew world that I have run two campaigns in already. The On the Rise campaign, as well as the Ashes of Heaven campaign that just completed. And tonight's campaign is in a different part of Rosbine, the kingdom of Vykaril. This is kind of Arthurian, medieval England mixed with some Germany. But before I get too deep into that, the name of this campaign is Beneath the Banner's Shadow. And I am going to go ahead and toss things over to my players so that they can introduce themselves, plug their channels, etc., which you should be able to find the links for in the description of this video down below. So, first up, Baron.
What's up, everybody? I'm Baron. I run the YouTube channel RWD Gaming. Links in the description. Tonight, I am playing Masaka Tord, or just Tord for the most part. This character is a fairly stocky, bulky, orcish humanoid. He's Angorian, coming from the eastern part of Vykaril. He's had far from the mundane life in the last couple of years, and having lost some people, he's trying to forge out on his own.
Absolutely. All right. Second up, we have Karen.
Good evening, everyone. I am Karen. I have a new channel. It's called Myth and Gears. Yay! Tonight, I'm going to be playing Arianna Shial. She is a moon elf, otherwise known as a Chirodel. She's also a member of the Seldan Shialarvan, which is, so she's a warrior. It's like I've been practicing over this last month. She's basically here to keep an eye on what the humans are doing and make sure that they're not encroaching and going back on their word to the elves.
Perfect. Next up, we have Eli.
Hello, everyone. I'm Eli Kurtz. I am part of the Mythic Gazetteer. I believe that link to the YouTube channel is down in the notes, and I'm very glad to be here. I'm also running a Blades of the Dark game with Jeremy and Baron right now, and that's really starting to heat up, so how exciting. Otherwise, I am here because I will be playing Sir John Lytenor, who is a young knight from the Duchy of Oxfeld and the scion of House Lytenor. For 2 generations, we have served as quartermasters to the Shieldhouse Mellowayne, but my skills and talents are better suited to House Lytenor's older and more prestigious role as standard-bearers to Shieldhouse Mellowayne. And so my quest is to bring my family back into glory by developing and mastering a new form of knightly combat.
Fantastic. Next up, we have Josh.
Hey everybody, my name is Josh. I run the YouTube channel Roll the Bones. It's been inactive for the better part of about a year and a half now, but now as life is kind of settling down, I look forward to putting some new content out there. Today I'm going to be playing Eddard Bainton of House Warrenton. He is from Warrenton. He's lived there his entire life. He's currently 19 years old, and he's pretty much had everything in his life handed to him up until this point, which he decided maybe it's time to seek some adventure for himself.
I'm sure he might find a little, perhaps. Last but certainly not least, we have Steve.
Hey, I'm Steve. I run the channel 3D6, and starting in 2 weeks, there will also be a Twitch channel called These Two Dudes, and it'll be me and a gentleman I play with in real life. We'll be taking modules, dissecting them, looking at them, and kind of coming at them from a book review standpoint, as well as adding in some ideas that between the two of us, we have a combined 40 years of DMing. So we'll be working towards that. Tonight, I will be playing the young Dane who is not real sure of himself. He just knows that he left the farm, and after a bad series of events, he squired up with Sir Lightenor, and one of these days he'll be a knight too, and just like in the stories.
Absolutely. All right. If you have not figured it out already, there is going to be heavy Arthurian influences in this game as well. It is by no means going to be a historical reenactment, nor will it be a reconstruction of the Arthurian story. Fair warning. Also, fair warning, there's going to be mature topics and mature language. We're all adults, and this is going to be an adult game. It's kind of an adult channel. So if that kind of stuff really does not sit well with you, you should click something else. Go watch. I don't know what people like you watch, but something else. If you have not already, there is a session 0 for this campaign. I suggest you go and watch that. You should be able to find it on the playlist. And yeah, it'll kind of explain a little bit about the setting. And there's a little bit of a kind of a prologue story with different characters at the very, very beginning there. And so, do you guys have any final questions before we get this ball rolling?
Can we start?
God, Baron. Yeah, we can start. I'm kind of ready.
Yeah,
all right.
just a little bit too as well, I think.
Let's play some D&D. All right. Mathuran Gabrain was the greatest king this land has ever seen. He brought us all under one rule, beneath one banner. He gave us a code to live our lives by, to honor, to protect, and to uphold truths in the face of oppression and tyranny, to find peace whenever such was possible, and when it was not, to defeat your enemies with righteous tenacity and determined fairness. But not all things are made to last. In the 50 years since his death, lesser men and women have followed, shadows chasing the light of the sun. The visage of what Vykaril once was is now fading. The people cling to a nearly forgotten promise, while those who hold power make a mockery of it. As resilience demands, however, we press onward, hoping for the sun to rise once again. We fly over the lush, green, forested kingdom of Vykaril, heading northward as we are inundated with rain. And we find ourselves in the small nestled town of Warrenton. North, near Gendon's Wall and the land of the elves. It's an outpost town. Moderate size. A few of the streets have been bothered to be cobbled, where the water gathers in the low spots here. It gets cold during the winter. But the winter has just broken. Spring is on the horizon. And with it, the rains have come, helping to melt the snow away, but making it no less miserable. We pull through the stained glass window of a building inside the confines of the Baron's castle. Though we are out of the rain, we can see it patter on the outside of the bits of colored glass and run in rivets along the leading that separates them. We're in a great, wide space now, dimly lit by a single candle set upon a rich wooden table that would normally be used for eating in a wealthy man's house. But this table sports dusty, leather-bound tomes stacked high, some 2 to 3 feet, and rolls of parchment, an inkwell, and a young man, the son of the local librarians, working late into the night by himself. Josh, please describe what it is that Eddard is doing here by himself so late at night.
In the dim candlelight, you can see that Eddard is quickly grabbing as much information and books, parchment, scrolls rolled up and sealed with the House Warrington sigil into his sack. And once everything is full, he looks down to the parchment in front of him. It is freshly written with ink at quill. He blows on it to dry the ink. He rolls up the scroll, and he drips a bit of wax onto the parchment. After a couple of moments, he stamps down with the House Warrington sigil. He rises from the table, and he gathers his belongings, his knees shaking as he makes his way for his father and mother's group office, currently deserted as they are probably asleep. He walks over to the desk of his father. He holds up the scroll and almost hesitates for a moment. You see in his eyes, he looks like, maybe I'm not going to do this. But he closes his eyes, and he gives a kiss to the scroll, and he lays it down on his father's table. He says, I love you, Father. And with tears kind of welling up in his eyes, he wipes them away. He turns and makes for the exit of the office.
Eddard, as you step from the office back into the library proper, you're met with a cold sense of dread. Sorry, the hounds are baying. You are met with a cold sense of dread. Your hairs stand on end, and the candlelight flickers, falters for a moment. You notice the library has fallen into an unnatural silence. You don't hear the rain falling on the window anymore, nor the sputter of the flame as it flickers and falters and dances, threatening to go out. Suddenly, you realize you're not alone. As you see movement between some of the books on the shelf, between the aisle, and this figure rounds the corner, hooded, dark face. You can't even make out any details. And you realize that this figure is hovering off of the ground. There's a glow that emits from the ends of its sleeves, as well as from beneath its hood. And instantly, you realize what this is. This is a creature you have heard about many times. This is called a Ravener. Some call them mind feasters. These creatures feed on the arcane energy of people, of spellcasters. They crave it like a vampire craves blood. Occasionally, they are sent to chase down those who practice dark magic. Tonight, it would seem, it has come for your magic. The problem with the Revener is that it doesn't only take your ability to cast spells from you. Once it has successfully drained all of the arcane essence from a person, that person becomes catatonic, a vegetable for the rest of their lives. This Revener is hovering between you and the only exit to this library. Eddard, what are you doing?
With one hand, Eddard goes to his belt where he has sheathed a small and simple dagger. He starts to remove it from the sheath. And with his other hand, he casts out a wave, and he's casting prestidigitation to light the torches in front of the door so that he can get a better view of what he's looking at. And he still has a little bit of tears in his eyes from the earlier, just a few moments ago. He pulls the dagger from his sheath and he adopts a combat stance, and not tonight.
Eddard, you stand in defiance, your dagger in one hand, and yet when you flick your other out before you and cast your spell, this spell that you have cast dozens, if not hundreds of times before, it fails before your very eyes. This creature absorbing the spell right out of your hand. It starts to come forward towards you, hovering mere inches from the floor. The bottom tattered edges of its robes almost playing at being smoke. It starts to lift its hand in your direction, and you feel a pull. Not a physical pull, mind you, but a metaphysical pull. So close, you can feel the cold radiating off of this being. What do you do?
It gets closer, and Eddard starts to feel the pull of the magic coming from every cell in his body, almost. He feels his arcane essence drifting, and as the Ravener gets close, he just tries to duck left and bolt for the door.
You try to juke around this thing. it spins, and you look over your shoulder just for a moment to notice it looking over its shoulder, watching you flee. But when you turn back to the door, there it is, again, in the doorway. You feel your feet heavy on the floorboards of this library that you have trod countless times. It raises its hands again, this time both, and advances towards you.
Eddard squints his eyes, knowing that he can't get away from this thing. He faces it, and he adopts a combat stance with his dagger blade facing his forearm. And he squints his eyes, trying to not look it in the face as he awaits its approach.
Approach it does. It's close enough, again, where you can feel your extremities, the tip of your nose, the tips of your fingers of your outstretched hand beginning to chill. It comes within distance to almost touch you. And though it is reaching out its limbs towards you, reaching these hollow sleeves, you realize it has no hands, just this energy that is siphoning your knowledge from you. You see this dagger in your hand, and you realize it's certainly close enough.
Oh, yes. And like, just at the last moment, he strikes out and he just lets out this tremendous, horrendous yell in the dead of night, and he strikes forward with the dagger.
You strike this thing with the dagger, plunging it into where this thing's heart should be. There's a moment of still. Everything comes to a halt. And that is when you awaken from your dream. And you find you are in your bed. Not sure if the scream that you just let out was real or not. But the only thing you are fairly certain is real is the face of the elf that looms before you, hovering over your sleeping form, and your dagger, driven to the hilt, sticking out of his left breast. He looks up at you, surprised. Looks down at the dagger. And then slumps onto the bed beside you.
Man, after a brief moment of just kind of just trying to discern dream from reality, this is real.
It takes you a moment, but you realize the blood on your hands, the blood on your dagger, and the blood that is quickly pooling in the impression that you just left in your bed is very, very real.
So Eddard has a moment of contemplation about what he's just done. He checks his person. Is the note there?
No, it is where you left it. earlier in the evening in the office of your parents, who it sounds like are now calling your name from the next room and making their way towards you, panic in their voice.
Eddard takes just one final moment, and he looks around at the only thing he's really ever known in his life, the familiarity of a home. And he grabs his green cloak. He slings it over himself. He hoods himself. But it's strangely empty where he would put the brooch of the House Warrington. He leaves it on the night table. And he makes for the window, jumps out, and runs into the streets.
We cut to some days later. There is a woman who has come to town. She serves the group known as the Justicars. These are devout followers of the goddess of Evandel, who is the goddess of justice. She is an executor by the name of Diamatha Sinwolf, and she has come to Warrington, as Justicars do, to settle matters of law and justice in the name of her goddess. When there is a Justicar executor available, they transcend the law of the court, with the exception of the High Monarch. And this Justicar has arrived to settle all kinds of claims, all kinds of issues that have sprung up with the people. They have set her up in the local church, given her a table where the altar would normally sit. The pews are filled with people with complaints, and one of which is a local baker, a rather rotund man with a canvas apron, his sleeves rolled up. He is angry. The color in his face is almost purple as he regales the tale of how a crow had come to ruin an entire batch of his pies. Not just any crow. The trained crow, he claims, by the name of Vanwa. A crow that belongs to the half-orc Tord. Tord, if you would please describe why this baker knows you and does not like you.
Well, as you can see, I'm a little bit bigger of a guy. So I walk in his shop and he's moving around all quick like, and I may have accidentally knocked some rolls off the counter one time. The crow is not trained. I don't even want the thing. It follows me around. It eats what it wants. Kill it if you can, please. Do me the favor. I have nothing to do with it.
The Justicar has kind of been sitting behind her table, her arms somewhat folded, as this is likely the dozenth or more thing that she has heard today. She says, Where is the crow now?
Beats me.
Listen, sir, I don't. If I cannot prove that the crow is his, I cannot, in good conscience, order this half-orc to pay you. And he starts to bluster. Clearly, he's trying to sabotage my business.
Look, sir, I'll tell you what. Your pies are great. I'll stop by and buy one later. But I'm not paying for the ones that the bird ate. I'll pay for what I ate. That's it.
I don't want you to even step foot in my store.
You said it yourself.
You've done enough damage as it is, between you and that damned crow.
Yeah. Are we done here?
The Justicar kind of looks between the two of you, and she nods her head. She says, as Justicar executor, I call this matter closed. Sir, I cannot pay you for your damages, nor will Tord, was it?
Yes, ma'am.
If you can catch the crow, you can kill it. And she kind of waves a dismissive hand. The baker gives you a filthy look. Grumbles about justice not being done, and exits in a huff.
Tord, bows to the Justicar again.
Thank you, ma'am.
And, kind of like shrugs it off. I'm sure they don't allow us to bring our weapons in here, so I probably would have gone to the guy that either peace-bound me or took them.
Absolutely. Yes, a couple of the Warrington family guard, the guards of the barony, are stationed outside the doors to keep the peace, and they will return your weapons to you as you leave. There is a moment where the executor takes a drink, kind of rubs her temples for a moment, and then turns her attention to a paper. She looks up, kind of scanning the crowd, and her eyes set upon Sir John Lightenor. She says, Sir John.
My lady?
I have word that you were stationed here. You may not remember me, but I am from Astuin, originally. Lady Laudine is a good friend of mine. We were friends as children.
At the mere mention of her name, there's a catch in Sir John's breath, and he shifts imperceptibly.
Yes. I have here that a formal complaint was lodged against you. In the town of Dundren, the barony of Dundren, one handsome John, she kind of raises an eyebrow at this. Apparently you assaulted his son. Is this correct?
My lady, I am bound by knightly oath to tell you the full truth of that account, and may I say, it is an injustice that has been leveled against me. You see, not only was this boy a peasant...
Sir John, please. I have heard many formal complaints already today, and I am sure there's no shortage. And she kind of looks at that paper again. If you could we keep this expedient?
Well, yes, of course. Any person who is close to the Lady Laudine is worthy of any reasonable request. So it was like this. The boy came at me, and he was a man grown, it is worth saying. He was a bully, plain and simple. And in fact, if not for my squire here, I wouldn't have known about his devilry in the town. And I gesture over to Dane, standing next to me.
Very well. He The matter of whether he deserved it or not aside, did you assault the boy?
It was a declared duel. It was no assault.
Well, I am willing to let the matter rest. However, you will owe Handsome John 10 silver.
To a peasant, my lady?
He is a sergeant of the city guard. It is a meager sum for someone of your station, but it will be adequate to settle his quibble.
Very well. I shall instruct my steward to send the money immediately.
Very well. If you wish, I can take it to him. If you wish to seek other means, that is fine as well.
Surely, yes, I will give it to you. Dane, count out 10 silver from my purse and take it to the Justicar executor, please.
Steve, you're still muted. You're muted.
Yeah, that's why I normally only mute myself up here, because I remember that. So Dane stands up and tries to straighten his clothing as best as possible, and also tries to keep from looking at this Justicar's cleavage, which is very difficult for him. So he finds himself focusing in like a lot of different directions, and he takes the entire pouch up there with him, these sort of trembling hands, and fumbles through it for a moment, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then he stops, just sort of like entranced by her eyes and her armor. 7, 7.
Boy, have you not learned to count past 7?
8, 9, 10. I'm very sorry. Just other than Sir Lightenlaw, you're the first. Well, I'm sorry. And he sets the coins down on the table and kind of like bows too many times, and kind of he looks at Lightenlaw when he walks by in this sort of like, I'm probably gonna hear about this later manner, and then hurries back over to where he was and tries not to draw any more attention to himself as he mutters, like, I should have done that. I mean, I can count to 10. Like, of course I can count to 10. I just
I imagine he's standing next to Sir Lightenor, and when he resumes his position, without looking down or even speaking up really, Sir John says under his breath, "That'll be another 3 hilltops with the sand barrel. You understand?"
Dane just nods.
Very well.
The Justicar kind of stifles a bemused laugh. She kind of clears her throat. I will consider the matter settled then. She kind of stacks the silver pieces off to the side with a few other payments that have been already made, and she jots down some notations on this list before she moves to the next item. She says, Baron Wyrus of Warrington has informed me that recently woodsmen have gone out and have not come back. And the crowd kind of starts to murmur a lot. She says, yes. She puts her hands out. Please, stifle your noise. The number of missing people has dipped into the double digits of late. This has caused no small amount of concern. Unfortunately, there are several people in the towns who have accused one, and she kind of looks back to her list. I hope I am pronouncing this correctly. Arianna Shial, an elf. Is there an elf by that name here? She kind of looks out into the crowd again.
And Arianna would have been probably standing in the back, just kind of watching what's going on here, kind of just taking an assessment of this human justice, or whatever they call this thing. And at the mention of her name, she would kind of stand like even more upright and be kind of shocked. And once she got her composure a little bit, she would start to walk forward. And what is this?
Ah, you are the one they speak of? Arianna Shial? This is you?
That is me, yes.
I see. She says, well, have you been involved in the disappearance of these woodsmen?
No. Not at all.
Have you proof of your innocence?
How does one prove one has not done something?
Fair enough. I have no less than 4 accounts that say that you are involved. I know that relations of late between our kind has been tested.
And what have they said that I have done with these woodsmen? Me.
Well, I don't think that the fine folk of Warrington are certain about elven rituals and whatever sacrificial rites you may practice north of Gindon's wall.
Sacrificial rites? We partake of none of that. What silliness is this? It's preposterous.
I see. Forgive me. Very well. If you say that you have not had any dealings with these disappearances, I can extend you a line of trust. It is a thin line, but one that you could strengthen.
And hearing that, Arianna would kind of cock her head a little bit. Strengthen how?
You are an elf. You are from north of Gendon's wall, I can only assume.
Yes, that is true.
Very well. Then I extend a charge. You will investigate these disappearances. Search the surrounding forest. Find these woodsmen. Clear your name.
You're ordering me
Oh, no.
to do your work?
No. It's not an order, nor is it my work. I'm a Justicar, an executor at that. I am doing my work now.
But this is a human matter.
And if you do not take care of this, the humans may decide that it is an elven matter.
Very well.
Good. I am considering this matter settled temporarily until the elf Arini whatever sees this business concluded. Until such time, we will consider the matter delicate. She kind of makes a few more notes on her list.
That is all? I may go now?
Yes, you're dismissed.
And she kind of turns haughtily and will walk away.
You kind of hear her mutter, elves. beneath her breath. He then looks to the list and says, "It looks like the next matters on our schedule are a little more delicate. The next matter is the trial of Eddard Bainton. Guards, will you please bring the boy forward?" Eddard, how far did you make it that night before the guards found you? And how did that arrest go?
I think that it wasn't very far. Once he went through his window and was making his way down the dark streets, I feel like the cries of his parents would have been enough to alert the guards in the surrounding area. And with some, precise maneuvers, they would have easily been able to cut him off. And seeing that it was he versus many, he probably would have laid his weapon down and given himself willingly.
Arianna Shial, you see your friend Eddard as you move to leave. You see him being brought forward in shackles. His clothes looking like they were saturated and muddied. Eddard, you're brought forward to the front to stand before this table that has this woman, this Justicar. She looks you up and down a little with surprise. She says, "You are Eddard Bainton?"
Yes, my lady.
"You are the son of the librarians who serve the House Warrington, are you not?"
You can see, being in front of such an imposing figure, Eddard does, his voice cracks. "Yes, that's correct."
"You are charged with murder." It was an elf. However, there was a dead individual found in your room, stabbed with your personal dagger.
Yes.
Do you have anything to say for yourself?
You can see that the tears are welling up in his eyes, but he tries to choke them back. You must believe me, it was only in self-defense. Why would someone such as he be in my chambers at such an hour of the night?
She kind of puts her hand up. "That is not the matter that I am here to judge. You claim it was self-defense.
Yes, my lady."
How did he come to be in your bed?"
I don't know. I was asleep. It was a long night of work, poring over tomes. I went to sleep in the early hours of the night, or the late hours of the night. And when I awoke, he was above me, over me. I didn't know what else to do.
I see. She reaches beside her and pulls a thin sword. You can see that it's still in its scabbard. The sword has certainly seen better days. but it is a thin blade, not unlike some carried by elves. She produces it and holds it up. Is this your sword, Eddard?
He looks close. Even though he knows that it isn't, he looks really close, just kind of being under the pressure. No, my lady. I do not carry a sword.
She places it on the table kind of in front of her. And she then produces a small leather pouch and drops it on the table with a small chink of coin. That you do recognize is your coin pouch, which you had failed to take with you that night when you left in such a hurry. She says, and this. Do you recognize this?
Yes, my lady. That is my coin purse.
Very well. She says, your parents have already testified to the fact that both of these items were found on the body of the elf that was slain. Therefore, I move to settle this matter as a robbery that has gone wrong. That you simply slayed an elf who was attempting to rob you, much the same as many of us would have done. Release him. And she kind of motions to the guards who come over and undo your shackles.
The tears are just kind of slowly streaming down his eyes as his binds are released. And he bows several times. Thank you, my lady.
She kind of slides the coin purse towards the edge of the table nearest you and then pushes the sword over towards the pile of coins that she has going on the side of the table. I imagine maybe your parents, maybe one or both, kind of rush forward out of the crowd, trying to embrace you.
He does. He gives them both a warm embrace as the tears just begin to flow.
And they carry you away, trying to gently understand why it was that you ran that night, what was happening. Clearly, they have not yet found the letter. The Justicar then says, we have but one remaining matter to settle today. She says, gods, if you will, please, bring in the child. The guards then bring in a young boy. He's 7 or 8, perhaps. He is likewise shackled. His shackles, however, seem like they're fitted for a caster, someone who has the power of magic. Murmuring goes up through the crowd. Some people even put some distance between themselves and this boy. He's marched to the front. You can hear him sobbing. His hood is pulled back. And you can see the slight point to his ears, indicating that he is a half-elf. The Justicar leans forward. You can see the hesitation in her expression. It then, in a moment, it hardens and becomes determination. She says, your name is Botubok? Is that correct? The boy nods. He says, people call me Bodhi. Very well, Bodhi. Bodhi, you are in serious trouble, at the moment, young man. He nods his head. You were witnessed casting magic. And he says, but, and she holds up her finger to stop him. She says, not only did you cast magic, but you used black magic. And you used it to attack someone. And he interrupts again. But she was my mother. She says, she holds up her hand again. Yes, the man that you attacked was the royal executioner. And yes, he was hurting your mother. I understand all of this, but you used dark magic against someone. He hangs his head, and he is weeping openly. You can see the muscles in her jaw tense. Bodhi, I need to know if this is the truth of the matter. Still sobbing, he shakes his head, not raising his eyes from the floor. She nods in understanding. And she says, very well. Gods, please take the boy. Unfortunately, this is not the only bit of ill business connected with this incident. The boy's father, whenever he was apprehended by the guards, stepped in and cut a man down. The sheriff of Stagfordshire will now step forward. Once again, an individual is led forward in shackles. This individual also a half-elf. One that one of you recognizes. Arianna Shial, what happens when this man is led into the room and you recognize something about this individual that reminds you of a man that you once knew?
So as she notices him walking in, completely involuntarily, the name Brahm she would yell this out, and then kind of clasp her mouth, like, oh my goodness, what did I just say? But at that point, it's too late. She's already said that. She's like, Brahm! And then realize it's not actually him, and she would be very, very confused.
Man whips around quickly, confusion on his face. You can see that the skin on his cheeks is dirty and streaks of tears that have washed away the dirt are staining his face. He looks around confused, trying to scan the crowd, unsure of where this name was shouted from. And then his eyes light on you. And they pass you at first, and then they come back almost immediately. And they hover there for a long, long moment before you see his brow kind of furrow in the middle in confusion. and anger playing out on his face like a canvas. And his eyes well up and begin to stream tears down his face again as his lip just begins to tremble. Who are you, ghost? You've come to torment me today of all days?
And Arianna, she would step forward at this towards him. You are not Brahm. Who are you?
Brahm was my father. You.
And at that, it's like he slapped her in the face. That's what it feels like. She just kind of stands upright. Trevon?
Yes. Yes, that is the name that I was given by my mother. An elf. Elves don't. He kind of shakes his head. Elves don't age the same way humans do. Isn't that right?
That is right.
Well,
Trevon, what has happened here?
You come back now. You come back now and ask me that question today. I have other questions I must answer. And he turns and makes his way away from you. Walking up to stand before this high executor. He casts another look over his shoulder as he comes to stand still. This forlorning, but at the same moment painful expression still playing on his face. He turns back to face this Justicar. She says, "You are Bodhi's father." And he nods. "The sheriff of Stagfordshire, one Traven Wainswardig. Is this correct?" And he kind of quiveringly answers, "Yes, it is. You are charged with slaying a man in response to your son's apprehension." And he nods again. "I would do it again in an instant. I'm guilty. Do with me what you will." She holds her hand up. "You are accused of murder, to which you are admitting your guilt. Your son has been found guilty of using black magic. It is with a heavy heart that I must declare that both of you, upon the morrow, will face execution for your crimes."
Arianna would yell out, "This is not fair. This is not justice. How can you kill a boy for being just a boy? It's not black magic."
She looks over to you with a little bit of kind of cannot believe that this is going to have to happen. And she says, "I understand that this is not an easy matter, but it is a matter to be settled by the Justicars, by an executor," and she indicates herself. "The law is clear. If you are found guilty of murder that is unjustified, and if you are found guilty of using black magic most especially against someone else, the penalty is death.
He is a boy.
Yes, he is a boy. Tomorrow, he will be a man who has the capability of practicing black magic.
What is this black magic you speak? What did he do?
He burned almost half of the body of the royal executioner. He shot fire, according to this documentation, from his hands.
And what makes that black magic?
It is of a forbidden school of magic. Magic is not allowed to be used offensively against one another. Therefore, it is black magic. I assure you I am quite clear on these matters.
Arianna Shalal is actually quite dumbstruck at this. But he's elven. How does your human laws apply?
His crime happened here, on this side of Ginden's wall. Therefore, the laws on this side of Ginden's wall shall prevail.
So send him to the other side, where he can live in peace.
At this, the man, the grown Trevon, has been sobbing uncontrollably. He steps forward and he says, please, you can kill me for what I've done. I will admit I deserve it. But not Bodhi. Bodhi, he doesn't understand that what he's done is wrong. I have failed him as a father, showing him that that's not the way. Please, you cannot do this to him. She says, I am afraid that the matter is a little too clear-cut. I do not know that there is any way to help you.
Justice Executor. And Sir John steps forward.
Yes, Sir John.
Who is the accuser in this situation?
The situation with the boy, the accuser is the royal executioner, with several witnesses from the townsfolk. The accuser of the man who was slain by the sheriff is his family.
I have a proposition. The law is clear in this matter. The accused must suffer their penalties. However, I hereby invoke an even more ancient law. I demand that this be satisfied through trial by combat, and I offer myself to stand in place of the boy.
You wish to be proxy for Bodhi?
Yes, and if possible, I am also willing to be proxy for Trevon as well.
I see. Well, I must check with the family and with the executioner to see if this is satisfactory and if they can provide a champion in their stead. We will dismiss until the morning, when we will settle this matter once
And
for
of
all.
course, Justice Executor, I know that you are aware already. However, for the benefit of all gathered, let it be known that if they should decline this duel, their honor is forfeit as of that day.
Yes, let it not haunt their descendants. And she kind of looks at you, Sir John, with kind of a knowing look.
What's up, baby?
She then dismisses the gathering for the evening. Those who are still held in custody are led away, and a somber evening settles over the town of Warrenton. This is where we're going to take our break. So, 5 or 10 minutes, come back, and we will get to the kinds of conversations that are being exchanged between our 5 heroes. All right. For those of you who are tuning in, thank you very, very much for watching this evening. Those of you who are tuning in at a later date, thank you very much for watching as well. Stick right back. Stick right here. We'll be right back. I'll figure this whole talking thing out eventually. All right. I am back. Hello, everybody out there. Thank you very much for watching. Looks like we have quite a few people tuning in tonight. Say hi to a few people. Looks like we've got Keel, Dave, Jeremy, Nico, Jose, Jason. Excellent, guys. Alan. Very, very happy that all you guys are turning out.
Alrighty, I'm back.
Good deal. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh yeah, I don't know if you saw my message in the chat. Was Eddard's dagger returned to him with his belongings, or is that still in custody of the people that picked up his stuff?
No, once you were released, it would have been released as well.
Okay.
You will have that back in your possession.
Sweet.
Cool, cool. Give everybody just a few more minutes to trickle in here before we'll get back into it. So I will admit that the first part of this was a little led by the nose, but you guys blew through the material that I had planned for this evening. So
We demand justice in
the
the
rest
face
of
of
this-
adversity.
the rest of this night is going to be highly dictated by what you guys decide to do next.
Well, I think there's like 3 of us that are willing to fight for the kid.
Perfect.
Tor's been hanging out in the back of the room, surveying everyone coming up to the stand. Y'all are short.
Are we still technically on break right now, or is this gaming that's happening right
Potato, potato.
now?
What's the difference?
Either way, I'm here for it.
This is just like the monologue that I'm going through at the back of the courthouse right here. I'm talking to some like really short peasant folk who has nothing better to do except for watch this, so he's probably terrified. I'm really close to him.
Uncomfortably so.
Uncomfortable for him, maybe.
Well, indeed.
I find him to be a real good arm wrist.
He's so intimidated. He won't say anything or move. He just is frozen to the spot.
I'm not even really asking his opinion. I'm just talking to him.
Perfect.
It's like the awkwardness that happens when you're on an airplane. You don't know that person sitting next to you, right? So there's that weird conversation. Then they fall asleep, and you're like, "Don't."
Oh wow.
Yes. Turbulence. I'm so sorry.
It's funny. Okay. It looks like we have everyone back, as far as I can tell. Cool. Very well. The trial, hearing, gathering, moot, whatever you want to call it, has been disbanded for the evening to gather again upon the morrow and find out exactly how the matter is going to resolve for Bodhi and Trevin. The 5 of you are able to find solace or at least some form of entertainment and drink at a place that is familiar to at least Eddard and Arianna Shial. So, if you would, everyone, take a moment to describe one feature, one thing, and one of you give it a name, if you would, of this tavern. I think it may actually already have a name. If you could, Josh, start us off, maybe?
The name of the tavern is the Stew and Brew, and it is owned by a fellow named Barnabas Crowley. One rather distinct feature is over the mantle, where there is currently a fire burning. There are 2 swords crossed, no shield behind it, but one of the swords is broken.
So Sir John is looking up at this sword, the broken one, and he gestures to Dane next to him, and he says, "My young Dane, behold, poor metalworking skills right there. What you must always remember is that when you choose your blacksmith carefully." Now, and he turns over to another side of the room, and he's talking to Tord. And behind Tord, there's this entire wall full of hunting trophies, deer antlers, boar heads, wolf heads, all sorts of stuff like that. And he looks over at Tord and he says, "Now you tell me in the festival last spring that you trounced the man from Warrenton. I struggle to believe it. He is a fearsome opponent."
Tord's a bit in his cups right now. There's one thing I like to do, it's have a good time. And so seeing a mildly familiar face, I'm sorry, mate, what did you say to me? Do I beat somebody in a what?
Yes, in the tournament last spring, but I doubt it. His skills are formidable, and yours, they're so-so.
Okay. You sound like someone who wants to buy me a drink.
A drink? Well, that'll get you back into the dueling ring. Perhaps I'm on board.
Aren't you the fellow I bested?
What? No, that's ridiculous. What? How could anyone think?
Can I make a... I don't know if I remember this or not. Can I roll a perception or something to see if I can deduce this?
Sure, absolutely.
First roll of the campaign. 18 on the die. I actually have no idea what my stats are in perception. Okay, just 18 on the die.
I would say that that's plenty sufficient to remember this individual.
Yeah, it was you. I put your face in the dirt.
Nonsense, as I said. And at this point, Sir John stands up and starts addressing the crowd. Sir John Lightenor is a man of peerless skill, and whose destiny is bound for greatness. And I say here and now that if this Masaka Tord thinks that he can best me in combat, why, he should challenge me after this matter is settled in the courts tomorrow.
And at this point, I would come real close and put my arm around you. Come on now, mate. There ain't no reason to be throwing surnames around. Sit down, we'll have a drink, and we'll talk it over. I know I didn't beat you that bad, but don't come at me like that in a tavern. What are you thinking?
Sir John looks around at everyone and realizes he's kind of made a misstep, and he's like, "Yes, we will discuss the terms of this privately." And then he comes and sits down with Tord.
And one of the things that Tord likes about this tavern is the one, along the walls, they have bench seats. They have a really fluffy pillow. Surprisingly, one of those hometown things is oh, we're going there because they have the really comfy seats. These have just pristine bench seats. So I would actually sit down next to you, Sir John, still with my arm around you. I do remember you, mate. It took me a minute. The noodle gets a little bit buzzed up.
But I wouldn't say I smashed your face in the dirt at all. You put up a good fight, and that's true to my word.
And yet you did say that you smashed my face in the dirt publicly.
Yeah.
I will have you answer for that.
You also tried to call me out in front of all these people. That was your fault, not mine. You might want to start it, but I'll be finishing it. Promise. And with that, I'll finish my drink.
Young Dane, what do you make of all this?
Of what, sir? The two of you, or the poor metal ship, or the trials? It's a lot. I do recall that he did have more points than you, if points are important. But I think that maybe his form was a little diminished by your form in combat. And as far as the metal ship, do you really think that it's poor metal ship? I like to think that the reason that you'd hang a broken sword over a mantelpiece is because it means something, right? That it was broken for a reason, like a hero making a last stand, and you would mount it above the mantle because even though your sword broke, whatever it is you were attempting to do, whatever you were defeating or saving people from, you were still alive to do it. And I think maybe that's the reason that you would hang a broken sword over a mantle. But if you say it's poor metal ship, then I guess he should have had a better blacksmith. And for the trials, is it right for them to be able to levy something against someone so young? If he doesn't know that it's not right for him to cast magic, then can he really be held accountable?
Tord would kind of be awestruck at this monologue produced by the squire.
Oh my god, this guy's got a brain in his shoulders. Think about it, man. You'll come up with the answer.
I guess by the letter of the law that he would be guilty, but being guilty by ignorance for trying to do the right thing is the reason that people like Sir Lightenort do what they do, so that they can stand up against the frailty of laws for things that we didn't know that they would never be applicable to. That's the difference between a judge and a hero, I think.
So Lightenor is staring in quiet awe.
And tomorrow, and Dane kind of stands up and tries to puff himself up as much as possible. Looking at him, he's not a frail child, right? He's got that sort of farm boy build. But if tomorrow two fights is a lot for you, and since one of them Bodhi's a boy, if I had to stand up for him too, I would. I don't have any real armor, but I have a sword, and I'd make you proud, he says.
Young squire, you are not ready for combat, not even on behalf of other children. I appreciate your valor, but your skill must increase before you are ready to face another human, or elf, or orc, or anything in combat.
Has Arianna Shell entered this tavern yet?
At that, you would probably have started to scan around the tavern. Then you would notice she's actually in one of the corners where they've got this kind of like target on the wall, and she's been like flinging this dagger with all of her might at the target. Thump, goes and gets it. Thump, goes and gets it. Thump, goes and gets it. And that's what she's doing currently.
I would look over to Sir Lightnor.
Jesus, man. What's going on in that one's noodle?
I can only imagine. Did I hear she is the grandmother of that grown man?
I don't know if I heard correctly myself. Some connection there. You could tell by the expression on her face at the very least.
Yes, well, even in the midst of her grief, it is conspicuous that she has not come over and thanked me yet for interceding on behalf of her family.
Well, words are only words until they become actions. So I guess with that being said, we could go have some words with her, get some insight on the elven aspect of this whole thing.
Oh, Tord, you would dare to think that it is appropriate for us to approach her? Oh, clearly you know nothing of human chivalry.
You don't approach your women in human chivalry?
Well, of course we approach our women, but that's not this. This isn't. Well, it's a different situation. Oh, he's going to turn around and pick up his mug.
So with that, Dane like scoots back from the table real quick, and with very erect posture walks over towards Arianna Shell, and waits for her to notice him, because he's not stepping in front of that dagger. Not gonna happen.
So after one more thunk, she goes to get the dagger, and she turns around, to step back again, and there you are. And she kind of stops and looks at you. I recognize you. Yes, you. You were at the trial today.
Yes, ma'am.
Was that your master that stepped in?
Yes, ma'am.
Is he here now?
There's a moment that like crosses Dane's face, like, how could you not possibly have heard him? And then he steps sideways as though maybe he's blocking your view in all of his 5'7"ness, and gestures back towards where Sir Lightnor is standing with Tord, or sitting with Tord. He would have words with you if that's acceptable.
I find that quite acceptable. You can show me the way.
All right, so he turns and kind of like even moves some people out of the way as though maybe he's escorting someone who's very important, or at least is trying to look important while he's escorting somebody. And walks back over to where the two of the knights are sitting. Sir Lightnor, the lady, and then he, what was your name?
And at this, Arianna Shell would step in front of you in all of her 5'4" glory. And she would kind of just imperceptibly nod towards Sir Lightnor and say, I am Arianna Shiel. And you are?
I am Sir John Lightenor, scion of the noble house Lightenor, of the Duchy of Oxfeld. I am pleased to make your acquaintance.
As am I pleased to make yours. If I may be so bold, what caused you to step in?
On behalf of the boy and his father,
Yes. Do you
Why?
know them?
as a knight, I am bound to certain tenets, and among those tenets is that my blade defends the helpless. And you see, no child should die for a mistake, and no father should die for defending his child. And so, if it is within my power and ability, I will not allow it to happen.
And she's actually kind of a little bit, I'm not going to say awestruck, but the look on her face is just more of a acceptance, like, yes, like, I like this guy. And she looks at you and says, well, as you humans say, thank you. Thank you for sticking up for my boy and his son. May I join you?
Why, yes, of course. And he steps back, and I haven't described what he's wearing so far, but it's this red doublet with black hose, and the sleeves of the doublet are slashed, and you can see this yellow fabric from his shirt poking through. It's the colors of his house. He's got his house crest, falcon rampant, emblazoned on his chest. And he steps back and he does this bow that looks like it's a little bit too aggressive of a bow. It's not like courtly grace. It looks like a knight's bow, you know. He says, please join us, join us. I was just speaking with my young squire here about my previous defeat of this orcish champion, Tord, if you haven't met him yet.
And at that, she goes stiff.
Yeah, Tord reaches out his hand, like as if to take hers in some like orcish courtly fashion. Good day, ma'am. Nice to meet you.
She steps back, and she doesn't let you touch her.
Oh, all right. No need to be afraid. I mean no harm.
And she just barely looks at you, and then she refocuses back on Sir Lightenor.
Well, geez, paint a painting, it'll last longer.
Are they actually sitting at a table? Because if so, then she'll sit down.
I imagined it was like a bunch of comfy chairs with cushions and stuff around a fire.
Yeah, so she would sit on one, probably furthest away from where Tord is actually standing at this moment.
I think actually I've been kind of off-put enough that I'm gonna get up, and I'm scanning the room for the bookish guy who was crying in court.
I imagine that as you look around, you don't see Ed among the crowd, but it's almost like you scan towards the door, and as you look towards the door kind of swings open really slow. And I imagine it's like pouring down raining outside. He walks in with his hood up, and as he takes his hood down, his hair is just like matted, and it looks like he hasn't washed for a while. His eyes are sunken and bloodshot, like he had been crying for hours. He walks in, and he kind of just gives a rather peculiar eye around. He looks very suspicious, like somebody might be following him. And he heads for the bar, and he takes a seat in front of the man serving drinks.
Well, with that, I'll leave you at be.
And I walk over to Eddard.
And as Tord approaches Eddard, you catch the tail end of the proprietor of this place, Barnabas Crowley, bringing a pint over to set down in front of Eddard. And he says, now, Eddard, You know, I wasn't believing anything that anyone said about you doing murder. It just doesn't make any sense, it doesn't. So, this one's on the house, you see.
He nods quickly. Says, yeah. Thanks, Barnabas. I could probably use one. He goes for his pack and he pulls a book out. And as he opens to the first page, it looks to be completely blank. And he pulls out a well and a quill, and he starts just feverishly jotting down all of the events of what happened in his dream, and then what became reality instead of a dream. And Tord, I imagine, like as you walk up, you just kind of take a spot at the bar, and he kind of he looks really quick over his shoulder, and he lets out a soft exhale as he sees somebody that's not familiar to him, but you've seen their face before. And at least it's not one of those things.
Outcast bond there.
Relax, it's just me. I guess that really doesn't mean much to you. I'm Tord, and who are you, besides the crying murderer?
Eddard does his best to kind of mask the face in which you saw when he came in, and it's not a very good job at all. But he cracks a smile, and Tord, Eddard Bain, it's a pleasure. Please do sit.
Yeah, I will, for a while.
I don't know if there. I feel like I kind of segued away from a conversation between Arianna Shell and Sir Lightnor, so sorry about that.
Okay. So as you kind of scurry someone off of their stool with, nothing more than a look, you're able to kind of sit down at the bar beside Eddard. And if you'd like, Barnaby will bring you... Barnaby? No, Barnabas. Barnabas will bring you a drink as well. 2? So she said. Yeah, he'll bring you 2. Yeah, he'll come over and you, sir, what do you have?
Before you answer, Eddard kind of looks to you. He says, "Ask for the Sand King's cask. It's good. It'll suit someone like yourself."
I'll have what my man here is recommending.
And I'll put a couple silvers on the counter.
Well, very well, sir. If you have the silver, you can have the drink. And he kind of waddles off and comes back with 2 tankards of the same brew that Eddard is drinking. And he kind of slides them forward, takes your silver, and then goes about his business.
Well, did you do it? Question I've been meaning to ask you all day.
He kind of, the smile drops from his face, and he looks away as to not look at the person he's talking to, and he kind of just looks down into his book. Well, yes, I did it, but as I said in court, strictly a matter of self-defense. I awoke to him above me in my quarters, and the first thing I reached for was my dagger.
And I'm still kind of looking straight ahead at the behind the bar.
Well, I believe you, mate. I didn't see a murderer who did it in cold blood cry like that. Nothing against you personally. It's good to cry from time to time.
Have you ever done it?
Murder? Technically, yes. Not one of my prouder moments, and something I'm working on every day. That's all we can do is be better than we were yesterday.
And with that, I would take a drink.
Eddard sips from his tankard. Yes, I do believe that is right. I've never felt the sensations I felt that night. The blood warm on my hands. The corpse slumped over. He kind of swallows hard. I've never so much as raised my fist at anybody, but such circumstances. He drinks from his tankard.
You see, in nature, when a beast is cornered, it's unpredictable, willing to do a lot that it wouldn't normally consider. Aren't we all but beasts?
When you put it that way, yeah. Yes, we are, to some extent.
To some extent, then, would it be fair to say you are acting on instinct and not your own rational mind?
Yes, as I stated in court, I just awoke from a nightmare.
Then it seems to me that you may be judging yourself for things that are outside of your control.
Yes, I suppose you're right. Well, thank you, Tord. Your wisdom has certainly been insightful to me.
Wisdom. Yeah, sure. No problem, man.
At that point, I think we cut back over to where Arianna Shial and Sir Lightnor and Dane are finding their way through what might be an otherwise delicate conversation.
What is this duel that you brought up?
The duel? Lady Elf, it is my specialty, to be frank. You see, it is when two people engage with each other in noble combat, honorable, and to various conditions, perhaps to the blood, perhaps to the death. As for tomorrow, I suspect it shall need to be to the death in order to justify passing a death sentence in favor of the defendant.
I'm a little unclear. How does this, and don't get me wrong, I'm very grateful. But how does this equate to justice?
Yes, well, my father would tell me that perhaps it does not. My father, noble though he is the quartermaster to our Shieldhouse to which we swear fealty. And as a quartermaster, he is not a man of action. He rests and resolves to defend the laws that keep this great kingdom together. And the laws are good for what they are, but it has always been known that a strong arm and a sharp blade are stronger than any law, and it is by that law that I challenge for the rights of your son and grandson.
And when you win, they will be free?
Yes, your family shall have their lives, and I shall have my glory.
And the Justicar will be okay with this?
Well, of course. You see, as I said, the laws are strong, they are locked tight. However, a blade is stronger, and the Justicar is an instrument of the law. The Justicar also wields a blade. She understands both sides of this issue, and if she is aligned with the traditions of our past, then she cannot refuse the result.
I see. Your
Sir
ways
John.
are... Go ahead.
Sorry, Sir John, for a moment, as you are regaling this information to Arianna Shiel, a voice enters your mind, an echo of a conversation held miles from here. It is the voice of your father. To share my disappointment is to air the weakness of my own blood. You are to no longer embarrass the Lightenor name. Understood.
My father? This is a flashback, of course, and in that moment, Sir John said, "Father, I owe all that I am to you, and yet it is time for me to become something more. I shall not sully the name of House Lightenor. In fact, I shall glorify it all the more. Henceforth, on the morrow, I will depart, and I will make a name for myself that you can be proud of."
If you do not, your name will be stripped from you.
I will not fail you, father, nor shall I fail our house.
And then I think we're back in this moment with Arianna Shial in the Stew and Brew Tavern.
You see, my elven lady, I am on a quest to develop and perfect a new form of knightly combat, and I find this technique to be supreme in the dueling ring. You may be assured that if I should face a lowly peasant or a highborn lord, I will lay him low, and your grandson will be safe.
And my son?
And your son also, if they will permit me to duel on his behalf as well. I am not clear of the legality of the situation, and it is muddy enough that perhaps the Justicar executor shall rule against me, and I will only be able to choose the one. I thought it more important to save the life of a child than an adult.
Your ways are strange. These are weird prospects. What if they choose not to do the duel? What then?
Why, then they forfeit their honor, and they shall have no acclaim throughout the entire land. In fact, the opposite. Their name shall be reviled throughout the entire land as cowards and vagabonds.
But the boy? What would happen then?
If they should refuse my challenge, why, if there is any justice in the land, then the truth of it will be seen out, as the boy and the father are innocent if their accusers are unwilling to stand in their accusations, and they will go free. But I must warn you, the land is less just than it once was.
At that, I agree. And if they won't let you fight both?
My elven lady, I think the better question is, will they be able to stop me?
And at that, she would actually signal to the barkeep to bring Sir John Lightenor whatever he'd like to drink.
Barnabas is very, very busy, but he does eventually see your motioning for him, and he kind of nods as a, "Oh, yes, yes, of course." And then he'll come over in a moment. And he says, "Yes, hold on a moment, I'll remember it. It's Arianna Shial. Am I saying it right?"
Yes, well enough. Get this man what he would like, please.
"Of course, my lord." And he kind of turns and bows deeply to you, Sir Lightenor.
So Sir Lightenor looks at the bartender, and then he looks at the crowd, and then he looks down at Dane. And he kind of gives Dane this almost imperceptible wink. And then he stands and he says, "Why, of course, what I should like is a round for the entire tavern. Ale for everyone, and half measure cut with water for the children."
Barnabas's color kind of drains from his face. Yes, of course, sir. You heard the man." And he kind of turns around and shuffles off.
I turn over to Eddard here.
Let's be friends with that guy, right?
Certainly does seem like a good sort, doesn't he?
Good sort and a good time.
Eddard does at that statement, he shuts his book and he puts away his ink set in his quill. Enough of that for now.
As this round of drinks is served, we skip through the rest of the revelry that follows, though even still there is a dark cloud cast above it. Is there anything else that any of you wishes to try to do throughout the evening before the dawn of the next day?
I just want to say that before we came to the tavern, Dane was required to take my chainmail and load it up in a barrel full of sand and push it up to the top of the hill and let it roll down 3 different times to clean the rust off of the chainmail.
In the rain.
Yeah, I was going to say it's pouring down rain. So, Steve, what is a little slice of this experience that we're seeing with Dane? What does that look like?
So, I imagine that you have that moment where the camera looks through Dane's eyes and meets the bottom of the hill and then sort of rises to the top, and then there's this determination. And the first time it is done with fervor, with speed, with this is going to make me better. And then the second time, about halfway up, there's this like slip in the mud, and Dane hits, and that barrel full of chainmail rolls back across Dane, just skipping off of him like he was a board. And he looks back down at this barrel, and then this hill. I wonder how many times he had to do this.
And as if on cue, Sir John's words echo in your ears. And whenever he gave you this task in the field, he put his hand on your shoulder and he said, "A knight is sworn to valor. His might upholds the weak. But distraction can mean the difference between life or death in combat. And so as you exert your might to clean my armor, think upon the things that distract you and purge them from your mind."
So Dane stands up and he mucks off the mud and straightens his padded armor and marches himself back down this hill and collects this barrel. And as he starts to push it up, once again realizing that he can't even count that half push as a half push, right? Like there's no halfway knighting. He keys on the word distraction, and there is this silent memory that he has of his mother, and it's her reading him stories of old heroes and knightly quests, and the expediency at which the next 2 trips up and down this hill happen are much quicker. Even though Lightnor's words were to not be distracted, it seems that maybe Dane even draws something from these fairy tales that emboldens him, if not empowers him. And that moment is only shot at the top of the hill, where Dane looks back to sort of see what he's accomplished, and is met with the image of Bodhi being perhaps moved from wherever he had got a chance to speak with his father back to wherever they're keeping this child. And he kind of and the frivolity, the grace of this memory is just done. And so he does his best to sort of like hup the armor up in this barrel and go back down, because he knows if the barrel gets ahead of him going back down this hill, he's gonna have to do it again. And so he fights his way back down the hill earlier before wiping himself down as best as possible and attending to Lightnor in this inn where we find ourselves currently.
Is there anything else anybody wants to accomplish before the dawn?
Are there any like religious temples or shrines in the city?
Absolutely. The building where the trial or the hearing was held is actually a cathedral. It's not an overly large one, but it's a decent sized place. Stone building, has a steeple.
To which deity?
This one is
Or is it
to
like an all shrine of some sort?
I mean, it for the most part, any deity could be worshipped here, but the patron deity of this temple is actually Heronius, the god of valor.
Perfect. So Tord, not much of a religious. I guess this sect of religion isn't really his cup of tea. Heronius was always someone that he was aware of that didn't totally scorn in terms of the more civilized religions. So I would go there, and I think I have like torch, but could I like modify that to be like a candle of some sort?
Yeah, absolutely. And if not, then you know that the temple has that kind of thing on hand.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I would probably even. I don't actually have silver pieces, but I can imagine I can cash in 1 gold piece for some silver for change. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I buy a couple candles, drop a couple silvers in their charity box there, and I do my own thing for the evening.
Eddard is just trying to get a decent, nice rest after what's going on. I don't think that he goes back to the castle, to his room. He probably rents a room at the tavern.
Yeah, that makes good sense. It's a few copper pieces or whatever to stay. The bed's clean. It's dry, at least mostly. The bucket in the corner is catching anything that's leaking in through the shingles.
Have like this picture. It's like a scene of Ed just laying in the bed and looking at the ceiling, and the camera just kind of pans over his eyes. You just hear the droplets of water splashing into the bucket.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then eventually the dawn will come. And the rise of the sun finds Sir John at this temple. Is he praying? Is that what he's doing there, Eli?
Sort of. Sir John is not a particularly religious man, but he does obey the culture of the kingdom. And so he does spend some time at least meditating in the temple. And if anyone were to draw near to Sir Lightnor this morning, they would hear him after a long time of silent contemplation. He would approach the altar and he would get down on his knees and he would say, "A knight is sworn to valor. His heart knows only virtue. His blade defends the helpless. His might upholds the weak. His word speaks only truth. His wrath undoes the wicked." And then he would rise and he would walk out of the temple.
As you rise to walk out of the temple, you are met by the Justicar executor on her way to this temple. She seems, though likely well rested, that the events of this moot has certainly weighed heavily on her mind overnight. She seems lost in thought before she notices you, Sir Lightnor. And she looks up and kind of catches herself in the moment. Ah, good morning, Sir Lightnor.
Justice Executor, good morning. You prepared for the duel?
I believe the accusers have had their moment to prepare, yes. Are you certain that you're ready to go through with this?
Yes, but I do have one question. Is it within the bounds of the law for me to stand for both the accused?
Normally, no. But with careful consideration, I am leaning towards allowing it because they are of one blood, and it is from a singular moment. And though the crimes are not the same, it may be within my power to make the call that you could stand for both. I am awaiting the answer on the matter from my superior.
So first of all, is it appropriate for me to call her Dame Sinwith? Is that something that I would call a Justicar executor, or?
No, she is not knighted.
Okay.
She holds kind of office that's almost, it almost exists outside of the normal kind of political sphere. So you would call her either Justicar or Executor or Justicar Executor.
Okay. In that case, Executor, your blade is just, and I trust you will make the right ruling in the moment.
I have spent many hours this evening praying to my goddess, and I believe that the decision, though difficult, is right.
Yes. May all of our judicial matters be resolved with such honor.
It will be if it's handled by the Justicars. If you'll excuse me. She kind of gives you a curt nod.
He returns the nod.
And she mounts the steps up into the cathedral.
And for what it's worth, too, he is wearing his chainmail this morning, and he's got his tabard over it with his family crest. But also wrapped around his neck is the scarf of Lady Laudine. He's wearing it as a favor.
And before she departed, she certainly eyed it for a moment before she departed and headed inside.
Cool. So once she heads inside, I'm going to turn around and snap my fingers. Young Dane, come along. And be sure not to drag my weapons on the floor.
So Dane falls in behind you, hesitating for a moment, watching the Justicar walk in and taking note of the fact that she said that she prayed about this, and here she is, in a temple this morning, and kind of nods and then realizes he has to play catch up now, so he's kind of jogging behind you. Sir Lightnor, could I bother you with a question?
Why, yes, of course.
Last night, when you were speaking to Lady Arianna, the elven lady,
Her name is difficult. I know who you're talking about.
You told her that that if you win the duels today, that justice is served, and that her son and her grandson would be free, like almost like their crimes would be undone.
Yes, indeed.
And I understand that that's the law. You taught me that. I'm hoping that perhaps you could share some of your wisdom with me. The family of the hangman executioner, they've already lost one person. How does it stand to reason that if you slay another member of them, that justice has been done? They've lost twice then.
My young squire, these are the laws of our land, but you may rest assured, in all likelihood they will appoint a champion, and no one in their family will need to die over this.
And their champion would be someone they paid, or someone like yourself that saw a cause to stand up for?
Perhaps either. It could be someone who does this for money, or someone who does this for glory. Although I will say, if they do this for money, then they are inferior, and that is even more sign that they will lose today. Because glory is the only reward in a knightly duel. However, do you tell me truly, Dane? Do you think that this duel should not be to the death, when death is already on the line?
And he just stops like dead in his steps with that question. And he's holding your weapons more like maybe they're a cord of wood at this point, than they are weapons of war. I'll think whatever it is that you tell me I should think. But I don't know that a child acting out in fear that hurts someone and a father responding in fear that killed someone, do I think that it's made right if someone takes up their cause because they see it as unjust and you kill them? Do I think that makes it right? It's not really for me to say, but I don't. I don't think that there's a lesson to be taught nor learned in the death of someone who I don't know. There's a lot of loss either way. Either the elven lady loses her family, which, if I'm not mistaken, she just regained in that same moment, or the family of Bodhi stands to lose someone who would champion them.
So Sir John is standing head and shoulders over Dane at this point, and I imagine they're on the stairs up to the cathedral, so he's even taller than Dane. And the sunlight is shining down behind him, and so it's almost hard to look at the glory that is Sir John at this moment, the sunlight shining off of his chainmail and that sort of thing. And he looks down at Dane and he says, "My young squire, your wisdom is strong already, even at this age. And all I can say to you is this, that sometimes justice carries no lesson. Sometimes it is merely cold retribution for wrong suffered. But I will tell you this also, And take this first of all from what I say. You told me that you would believe whatever I tell you, and there will be times in your life when what I tell you will not serve you, and the only thing that will serve you is the strength in your thighs, the blade in your hand. And in those moments, let no lesson guide you. In those moments, move beyond lessons and fight purely from instinct and act purely from instinct. Do you understand, boy?
I think so.
Very well. Now tell me this. Have you seen the orc from last night, Tord?
Oh, well, I know this morning when I was laying out your kit that he had ordered some more drink and meat to be brought to him, but I didn't see him personally. Just, I imagine he's the only one of his kind here, so I more heard it than saw him, so I guess not. No.
Very well. Come inside and help me set up my station, and then I shall need you to go and seek Tord out, and request that he bring his gear with him.
I think we cut then to where Tord is. And Baron, where do we find him?
I got home late last night. I say home. I got to the Stew and Brew pretty late after leaving to go do my thing at the Temple of Heronius. So Tord may have gotten some more to drink when he got back. So I'm pretty like, ugh. Where's the mutton? Where's, I guess, more mead? Kill this headache.
Barnabas comes in as if on cue and sets down a large platter with what seems like excessive noise in front of you. And you can see that it's got cold mutton and there's porridge that's kind of been placed next to it. He looks like he's incredibly tired because he was probably up late serving your drinks and then had to get up early in order to cook breakfast for the entirety of his guests.
So I would actually look up to him bleary-eyed and, you know, still kind of probably still reeking of booze and like put a hand on his cheek. You know, Barnabas, you are a treasure. And give him one more silver piece, and then I will start to eat to regain my victuals here.
You are starting to chow down as Barnabas kind of leaves you to it. And that's kind of when you notice you're probably, I don't know, 4 forkfuls in or so before you notice a woman standing not far away from you, kind of just staring at you. And you realize you recognize her. She was actually in the temple last night for a little while, saying prayers and lighting candles quietly to herself. And she definitely eyed you then, too, but didn't say anything. And yet here she is again, staring at you.
I think that I'm actually like not, she's not in front of me. She's like looking at me from over here, and like I glance over and notice it. And there's a chair sitting at this side of the table, and I'll get up and sit on that side of the table and just start staring at her.
Immediately, her eyes kind of dart away, trying to find anything else to look at, but you can see that they keep wandering back to you. And eventually, she comes forward, and she gives what can only be described as her best attempt at a curtsy. She says, "My lord."
Wrong title. Go ahead, have a seat.
She says, I don't wish to interrupt your meal. I have but a question for you.
Well, you already done interrupted the meal, so I could oblige you with the question.
Forgive me. I apologize. My family, is in need. Dire need.
Go on.
My father was the guardsman who was slain by the sheriff of Stagfordshire, and no one will be our family's champion. Sir, I beg of you. And she kind of fishes into her robes and pulls out this leather pouch.
No.
And she kind of places it on the table. Sir, please.
You can keep that.
Please, no. It's 35 silver pieces.
I'll do it without the money.
You will? No, I insist you take the money.
Stop talking.
I'm so sorry.
It's all
Forgive
right.
me.
It's all right. It's all right. I understand. I'll do it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, my lord. And she kind of bows, like, over and over again. I prayed to the gods that they would answer my prayers, and I should have asked you last night. I knew it. I'll leave you to your meal, but I must give the Justicar your answer. So you will stand as our champion.
I will.
Good. Thank you. And she turns and makes her way towards the door. You can see the pouch of money is left behind on the table.
Of course you did. Barnabas, I want you to hold on to this and give it back to whoever the hell that was. Because I'm not being the knight that decided to take the bribe. And like putting my head down, kind of like arms square. I imagine there's a cat in this building, like a mouser. And I kind of got like a piece of mutton and I'm kind of just throwing pieces of it on the floor. Goddamn pretty human girls.
At this point, Eddard probably would be coming down the steps. You hear the clattering of his foot falling down the steps. Tor, good morning.
Yeah, you could call it that. Put myself in a bit of a bind there, Eddard, my friend. Gotta escort me down to the tourney grounds.
Sure. Are you going to watch Sir Lightnor duel?
And like picking up the coin purse and throwing it at Barnabas. No, I guess I'm fucking fighting him.
Wait. What? Wait. Hold on. One more time?
I was requested to be the champion for the God's family since no one would step forward to fight for them. And being as I'm such a nice guy, an upstanding citizen, I decided to oblige them.
Well, certainly you aren't planning to duel to the death, like he mentioned last night, are you?
I guess we're going to find out.
Well, then, I suppose we shan't be late, then.
You ever strapped up some mail before?
No.
All right, fine day to learn. Let's go.
All right.
I mean, I don't really have like a whole lot of mail, so it's like helping me get my chain shirt on over my tunic that is stained with mutton gristle and morning ale.
I imagine it's like a 10-second long montage of Ed just asking Tor, are you sure?
It shows an arm like into some chainmail, another arm, it's the shirt. It's like the straps.
Well, Tor, I hope you're right about this.
Well, I fought him before. Won, but it was really close. We weren't fighting to the death.
Hold on. You mean to tell me that you've already fought Sir John?
It was a while ago, but yeah, it was in a tournament. We fought briefly.
Well, it would seem that the stars have aligned, haven't they? He kind of gives an unsure chuckle.
I look at him. What fucking stars are you looking at? Yeah. I think he will be overjoyed to see me on the other side of that ring.
I don't doubt that you're right.
All right, well, let's go. Have some fun.
And we head back over to the cathedral, where the entirety of the town of Warrington has turned out, despite the fact that there is a drizzle continuing from the previous night. The market has been roped off a space large enough for dueling, and people jockey for position, for proximity to this cord, this rope. And first, the business in the cathedral where the Justicar is meting out the ruling that will precede this trial by combat. She informs everyone that she has received word from her superior, and that Sir Lytenor will be allowed to stand for both individuals in this particular instance. And that the fight with the executioner, his family's champion, will happen first, since it is a royal household. He was a royal executioner. A knight from the House of Warrington himself has been named as champion. This individual has arrived with his armor polished, wearing the colors of House Warrington with its sigil displayed proudly upon his tabard. His name is Sir Derwin. He has stepped forward, given his proper greetings, and introduced himself. And he makes his way over to you, Sir Lytenor, and extends his hand.
Has it been determined yet if this is a duel to the death or not?
It is.
Okay. All right. So John extends his hand likewise. And he says, I shall win for the glory of those who are wrongfully accused.
I am Sir Derwin. You may be right. The gods will determine, the virtuous divinity, which side of this disagreement is just. I'll have you know, Sir Lytenor, I take no pleasure in killing you today, only in doing what is right.
Sir John fixes a steely gaze upon Sir Derwin, and he says, I shall take pleasure in besting you in a feat of skill. But in killing you, there shall be no pleasure to be found.
He kind of nods as if he accepts this. To the field, then.
To the field, and may the best man win.
Indeed. He kind of slams his visor down shut over the opening of his helm.
Actually, no, I gotta retcon that. He doesn't say to the best man win. He says, may justice prevail.
At that, he kind of looks over at the Justicar. I think it will. And then he turns, lowering his visor, and heads to the arena, if you would call it such.
All right, cool. What's he armed with?
He has a spear.
Okay. Then Sir John is going to turn to Dane and say, my young squire, fetch me my halberd.
So Dane turns and goes and gets this unwieldy polearm and brings it back in a manner that is awkward, but keeps it out of the mud and muck of this area.
As Sir John, as Sir John takes the weapon, he gives a brief parting words to Dane, and he says, remember what I've told you about polearm combat as you observe. And then he turns around.
Does Eddard have a moment to speak with Sir John before he makes his way into the arena?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I imagine Sir John as you're walking down. It's kind of the crowd has kind of parted ways for you. And out from the crowd walks cloaked in green figure. And he pulls down the hood and you see the face of Eddard. He looks a little bit more rested this go around. And he looks up at you. Do you have your visor on? No, not yet.
No, in fact, my helmet is kind of tucked under my arm at the moment.
Okay. So he looks up at you and he says, Sir John, I don't think we've been formally introduced. My name is Eddard Bain of House Warrington.
Yes, you were on trial yesterday.
Yeah. I wanted to say thank you. You're very honorable. You're fighting for a good cause today, and I have no doubt that honor guides your blade. And I would like to give you a point of inspiration. 1d6, the last 10 minutes.
I appreciate your well wishes, Eddard, and I promise you they will be well earned.
And with that, he kind of just nods his head and returns to the crowd.
And as this duel is coming closer to commencing, what are the other three of you doing?
Arianna Shial has been there, probably like one of the first ones there this morning. May not actually recognize her because she's probably standing off to the side right now, and she's got this black cloth over most of her face, being that it's very bright out already. And she's kind of standing there. It would almost seem like she's kind of pacing, but not quite. Like she's kind of going from side to side, because that's as much as she's going to show right now. But she's extremely tense and waiting to see Sir John come through.
And Sir John does indeed come through.
She would approach him and say, "Blessed Luna, I hope she's with you today. May you fight well. May she shine upon you. Thank you.
Thank you, my elven lady. I shall strive my very hardest to win justice for your son and your grandson.
She would nod.
Dane or Tord?
Tord is currently with the family of the killed guard. I'm getting their side of the story. I'm sure they're crying. I'm having to console them. I'm getting sworn in by the Justicar that I'm their champion. I'm going through all these legal processes that I wanted no part of to begin with.
So you'll probably arrive as this thing is starting, probably with the Justicar herself. And what about Dane? What is Dane up to during this?
So the I would imagine that the accused are put in a position that they're able to witness this, right? Because it's their lives on the line, awkwardly.
Absolutely.
And so although he's standing in Lightnor's corner and is maybe even holding a standard of Lightnor, he has this pitying locked gaze on Bodhi. There's something familiar about the situation. Maybe it's a bad dream or a story that his mom told him or something. So he stares intently at Bodhi, sort of soaking in all the details of this child that yesterday the Justicar said today he would be a man, all because of some power that he may or may not have known he had. And that's kind of world rocking for Dane. And so he stares at him and occasionally looking over at the elven woman, who he's never going to pronounce her name. It's he'll try. And looking back and forth, and it does strike this chord with him as someone who himself recently more or less ran away from home and left his mother. And he would get jarred back into the current situation, perhaps by the first connecting of swordblade and spear, or halberd and spear, as the duel commences.
And it does. It is begun. These two armored men in silver circle around one another, trying to find weaknesses in one another's stance, adjusting their own footing to try to better match their opponent. These long pole arms held aloft in front of them, carrying the colors of their house, or perhaps some sworn maiden's love. Blows are exchanged, most glancing from one another's armor. And there's a gasp from the crowd as the spear manages to bypass Sir Lightnor's armor and give him a grazing puncture wound in his thigh. The duel continues with blows being exchanged. and Sir Derwin is able to successfully land 2 more blows against Sir Lightnor. And it seems as though this may not go in favor of Bodhi. The half-elven boy watches with confusion and thankfully was allowed the comfort of his father, though both are still shackled as they stand at the edge of this arena. But in a turn of fate, Sir Lightnor, what does it look like as you finally best Sir Derwin?
Well, this whole time I've been on the defensive, and I have held my halberd up above my head in a high guard, and I've been using it to parry blows and occasionally sweeping it down for like a strike against the legs with the butt of my halberd, kind of toying with him. And it's clear in the duel, this probably can't be heard by anybody else because of our helmets, but in the duel, he's saying, "That's 1 you have against me." And then Sir Derwin would get another blow against me. "Ah, that's 2." And then he would go for the 3rd, and he would parry it off, and he would say, "Now, my turn." And he's going to charge forward, just as Sir Derwin is drawing back to strike with his spear. And Sir Lightnor is going to basically bull rush the guy off of his feet down to the ground. And then Sir Derwin rolls away, and he sweeps the spear on the ground to try and trip Sir Lightnor, but Sir Lightnor lifts a leg and manages to dodge away from it just at the right time. And then he steps away because he's not going to strike a man who's on the ground. So Sir Derwin rises to his feet. They square off again. And this time there are a few exchanges, but it's clear Sir Lightnor is holding back in the beginning. And now he's letting his skill with the halberd come to the fore, and he's doing all kinds of stuff. He's trapping the spear blade with the butt of the halberd. He's reaching up and doing like an unbalancing movement by hooking the halberd behind the guy's helmet, and then, like coming up and smacking him with the butt of it again, really making his helmet ring. And finally, it gets to the point where they're both pretty winded. And Sir Lightnor finally manages to get a really solid connection in the guy's thigh, and the guy screams out and falls to his knees. And Sir Lightnor holds his halberd at the ready, and the guy's kind of on his knees heaving. And Sir Lightnor says, "Do you yield?"
You've beaten me. You've beaten me fair and square. You're a noble knight.
As I said, this moment gives me no pleasure, but neither did besting you, proving my skill against you, for you are indeed a worthy adversary, and I hope the divine treats you favorably. And then he's going to swing like a hammer throw thing around his head and just bring it right into the guy's neck. And because of his armor, I don't think it's enough to actually knock his head off, but there's definitely a crunch, and the guy crumples to the ground and expires there.
Indeed, he does. There's a gurgling that slowly grows quiet, as does his body still. The Justicar, standing nearby, watching this unfold with her arms across her chest, nods. She then addresses the crowd. There are gasps and murmurs of conversation. She holds her hand up to quiet them and says, "The business of murder from Bodhi has been settled. He is free to go. Release him." The guards immediately begin to unshackle the boy, who seems happy, and then realizes that the guards are not taking the shackles off of his father. And he starts shaking his head. No. She said we were free to go. And the father kneels down in front of the boy, kind of catching Arianna Shial's eye as he does so before he turns to face his son. And he says, "Not yet. Not yet. But he's a good knight. He won your freedom, and he'll win mine as well. You watch and see. Now be brave." And he kind of stands back up. Sir Lightnor, you have but a moment to prepare for your second battle of the day. And Baron, how is it that Tord enters this ring?
So I picture almost like just a simple gate, kind of on the edge of the crowd. Maybe it's like large enough to get carts and stuff in here, or whatever they would have to bring in here. So there's a bunch of people pressed up against it. And you see guards kind of like shoving people away, and very contrasting to how I looked last night, where I was, in my rough spun tunic, my trousers, simple boots. I now have donned shield and sword, a chainmail shirt, and a light helmet. Walking very, straight and tall, and with all the mild courtly honor that I'm aware of.
And as Tord steps into the ring, the cleared section for combat, Sir Lightnor, you look across as you've prepared for this second battle, and you've realized who your next opponent is. What is your immediate reaction?
Sir Lightnor instinctively reaches up to touch the scarf of Lady Laudine. And he kind of turns it over in his fingers a little bit. And he looks at Tord across the way, and he heaves a sigh. And then he holds his halberd out to Dane, and he says, "Squire, ready my sword and shield." And he walks across the fighting ring to Tord and extends his hand.
Tord will definitely meet you halfway. Kind of exchanging a nightly banter as we meet in the middle. "I don't want you to think it was nothing personal. They came to me asking for help. I'm obligated to help people just like you."
Sir John seems to process that information, but his hand is still held out, and he says, "I am Sir John of the noble house Lightenor. I challenge you to combat."
Kind of dropping my planned speech. "I am Masaka Tord, and I accept your challenge."
So do you take his hand?
Yes.
In a somewhat unorthodox gesture, he's going to bring you in and clasp you on the shoulder too, which is like kind of what allies do when they duel. And it gets you in close enough that he can say, "To the death?"
I prefer not to.
"Justice must be served, but I would rather not either."
Justice can be served, but one way or another, I'm not trying to kill you out here. You haven't done anything. I don't really think anyone here has done anything that they're really responsible for.
"But Tord, by the laws of the human lands, someone must die here."
Have you taken any major injuries from your last fight?
That was a question I had. Did I lose any hit points in this previous thing?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
We'll say 10% off of your max.
Okay. So that is 2. Yeah, I have 20. All right.
So, this could be considered a persuasion, I guess. Look, man, you've already been bloodied up in your last fight, and it wouldn't be some divine intervention if you beat me here today. That's just not logical. It's not based in fact. I'm not going to humiliate you, but I'm going to beat you.
So did you clasp his shoulder in return?
Sure.
Okay. So you can feel he's standing at a particular height, and he's shorter than you, right?
Yeah.
But he's still a particular height. And then he is going to take a deep breath. And in that moment, you feel him straighten up a little bit. And this is my second wind power that I'm activating. And so I'm going to roll a d10 and get my hit points back. And I rolled a 10, but I only had 2 to regain. So I'm going to go back up to 20. And then Sir John will unclasp the shoulder of Tord and let go of his hand, and he'll look towards Square in the eye, and he'll say, "May the best warrior prevail."
May justice prevail.
How do you want us to do this?
As the two warriors retreat to their sides of the arena, the rain comes to a stop. The crowd looks on, eager to see how this will play out. But we'll have to wait until next time. With one last bit, Eddard, with the stop of the rain, a pair of eyes flashes before your mind's eye. Eddard, I have not forgotten. And that was where we were stopping. Everyone, thank you very, very much for playing this evening. You guys were fantastic. What a way to kick off a campaign, and I cannot wait to get to the next session and find out how this is going to all come apart, come together, whatever happens. So thank you very, very much for anybody who has tuned in this evening or who may be watching at a later date. I'm going to pass this over to my 5 fine players so that they can do their outros, and then we're going to call it a night. So in reverse order, if I can remember, first up is Steve.
So,
Mute yourself.
Yeah, I lost you.
wow, this thing just hates me.
There you go.
So, as always, it's a pleasure to play with you, Jeremy. I enjoy your games, and everybody else here. I'm very much looking forward to this, getting little bits of nuggets of wisdom, so Dane can grow. I do appreciate everyone who tuned in, and the comments over here on the YouTube channel, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this plays out and who gets to make a new character next session. Because, yeah.
Well, technically, I can knock him out and then resuscitate him, so he'll be all right.
I guess we'll have to find out.
Yeah, okay.
Science.
All right. Next up is Josh.
Man, I just gotta say, Jeremy, you just blow me away every time, man. You're incredible. Everybody, Baron, Eli, Steve, Karen, you guys are incredible and just a joy to play with, and I look forward to playing with y'all in the future. It's definitely a great time. Thanks to everyone who's watching or who will watch in the future. I appreciate you all, and yeah.
Excellent. Next, we have Eli.
Everyone, thanks so much for watching. Wow, what a first session. Jeremy, you know how to start them off. So I'm Eli. I'm part of the Mythic Gazetteer. You can find my YouTube channel in the comments. Thanks to everybody who watched. Thanks to everybody who played. This is already a really amazing group, and I can't wait to see where it goes. That's all I got. Thanks so much.
Perfect. And as I stated earlier, everybody who has been mentioning a channel, you should be able to find the link to it in the description in the video of the video down below. Next up, we have Baron.
Hey, what's up, everybody? By this point, you should probably know me if you watch Jeremy's videos. I'm Baron. I got the YouTube channel RWD Gaming, which is in the comments. I don't really have anything to say about the game that hasn't already been said. Happy to finally get a chance to play with a couple of you that I hadn't got a chance to play with, and a couple of you that I have. Get ready, everybody.
Indeed. And last but certainly not least, we have Karen.
I'm just going to parrot what everybody's been saying. This was an amazing first session. I mean, you come right straight out of the gates with the big guns, hitting us all right where it hurts. So that was awesome. I can't wait to see where this is going to go. This is a fabulous group of players, and I'm very honored to be with them. So thank you so much. Can't wait.
Absolutely. And we are honored to have you. Everybody, this was fantastic. You guys knocked it out of the park tonight. So I thank you very, very much. I would be remiss if I did not also thank Rachel Ayers. She is a phenomenal artist, and she drew all of the house shields for us for this campaign. I'm showing you the one for House Warrington right now. And you'll see many more of them throughout the rest of the campaign. So thank you very much, Rachel, for doing that. It certainly adds a certain level of legitimacy to this setting that is needed. So yes, I've been Jeremy. This has been the Erasmus Expeditions. This has been session 1 of Beneath the Banner's Shadow. And there will certainly be more to come. There's plenty of other videos to check out on the channel. Drop a like, drop a subscription, you know what to do. And until next time, may your dice roll high and your snacks always be within reach.